Hey everyone, Lauren Jones here, your business law and estate planning attorney coming to you from California. I am here to talk about how do I give my inheritance to my beneficiaries. And there's multiple different ways to kind of do that. Like we have different options on how you give inheritance to your beneficiaries, and it's really can be very customizable. So it can get, we're going to cover it in an overview, right? Because we can't get into all the nitty gritty details, but clients come up with some great options on what works best for their families. But we'll kind of cover some general understandings of how we do some things like that. So we have outright distribution, okay, outright distribution. And then we also have general needs trust. You can also have special needs trust if you have that requirement. But the typical starting point is outright distribution and special needs trust. And those things are really good. So outright to understand is outright is basically saying that I'm just going to give my money to my kids. I'm not going to take any control over it. They're just going to get it the way they want. Great for older children that don't have any creditor issues or concerns, and that they're well established and they're just going to need the money to do what they want with it. Then you have general trust, and that's what we call sometimes a children's trust, and that can be done in a few different ways. So you can have you can actually have incentive trust. So what the point of the general trust is that you're giving your money to your children in a trust instead of giving it to them outright. So you're creating control over the money. So that's you're setting the rules and regulations on how it gets handled. Sometimes it's great if you have young children because you have no idea when you pass away how they're going to actually be, if they're going to be fiscally conservative or very risky. You don't know. So you're kind of creating some levels of protection. And, like a typical, like, okay, well, how do we write that trust, right? And that's where the nuances come in, and that's where every client gets really different. It's, you kind of have a typical distribution sometimes where you have like, I'm going to give, a percentage at 21 and 25 and 30 and 35, or 18, 21, 25, 30, something like that, right? And you might just do four equal increments. And if they have already surpassed those ages and something happens to you, they could take it all if they wanted. So that's kind of a real straightforward way to do it, but we can get as complicated as incentive trust, where I'm incentivizing, we're writing it to incentivize your child to actually, act in certain ways and be fiscally responsible or charitable or things like that. And so we can build in some more complexity to that. We can also hold all the money away and only give money for health, education, maintenance, and support because we know that they're very irresponsible with their money, or we're afraid they're going to use the money for things that are not good for them. So we can create various levels of controls. I have clients that build in entire plans of how much they get monthly and so on and so forth, and spread that out over time. So the detail that can happen there can be very straightforward all the way to highly complex. And this is one of those places where your estate plan gets more complex and obviously might cost more based upon the complexity that you built in, because we might have to create more kind of rules and regulations on how to handle things. But essentially, that's kind of how a general needs trust work. And it's really beneficial if you have young children, like I mentioned, and you don't know how they're going to be. If you know that your children have creditor problems, if you want to make sure that your children don't get too much money at once, those are all great reasons to build children's trusts, or like I said, that general needs trust. So those are really great reasons to do it. So these are just some ideas, because like I said, every single client is different. We talk about it in depth. We figure out what makes sense for them. And I'm always throwing out ideas, but I'm always starting with, here's the general, break it into 4 and set that up. But like, we have some clients that are like, well, let's give them a little bit in the beginning and make sure that they know how to use it, and then give them more as they get older. So that works just the same. So keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out, before you come in and you're talking to your spouse about how you want to kind of build that trust, keep those things in mind. Pay attention to these ideas, like, okay, well, these are different ways we can do it. There is no right or wrong way. I would say the only thing is talk to an attorney so that you can make sure you're getting it done right and it makes sense. So if you have any questions about how to give distributions to your children and what makes sense for you and your family, give us a call and I'd be happy to help. Thanks so much.